Hello everybody and welcome into what I'll just call the weathering workshop, just for the heck of it, because something like this, oh my gosh, this is one solid massive chunk of resin. Look at this thing. This, I think a brick would actually be less heavy than this guy here, but we're going to try and paint this massive school bus, and there's actually more to it because you've got some of these elements too. You've got your machine gun here that's going to go up on top of it. So yeah, there's a wee bit to get done on this. What we're going to do is start this off. We'll paint this up, and we're going to use mostly pro acryls here, I think. A couple of blues that was for tires, for drums, that sort of thing. We'll use these guys. We also have a couple of other, here we go, some burnt sienna, some golden brown, some black brown. There was probably some other colors that I introduced to, and of course we're going to be utilizing some weathering powders here. And the other goal is to, well, maybe use them in a couple ways. Dry, but then also try and make them into a liquid, because you saw this in the terrain, last terrain tutorial, where we mixed this with these, and we were able to turn it into a paintable type of a substance, but it was also permanent. Didn't have to worry about sealing it or anything like that. It's going to stick. Now, if I were to just apply this as a dry type of a medium, I'd have to spray it. I'd have to do something to seal that. But what we want to do is, because this is so heavy and it's going to be handled, I mean, gee whiz, it's really going to be handled. Well, my goal is to try and just use this right away and have this stuff be sealed on there and not have to worry about it being wiped off with heavy-duty handling. We will have our makeup sponges, of course, and we're also going to have plenty of larger craft brushes like this. So again, what we're going to start out with is just a very basic sort of shaded base coat. I'm not quite sure what every surface is supposed to be. Maybe these canisters, we make those red or something like that. These gas cans up here. We've got a lot of jerry cans on this. We have a spare spring over here, more jerry cans there. So we'll probably introduce some more colors to this as well, just as this goes along. I really haven't had a chance to look at this very much. Maybe we'll do some greens on the backpacks, and maybe this will be green as well. It's very interesting, that's for sure. We got some, well, we'll just call them pioneering tools, because yeah, we'll see what maybe we do this way with some kind of non-metallic there. And yeah, this is going to be a very interesting one here. I don't know how much of everything I'll be able to show. There might just be, given the weight of this thing, there might be some things I might not be able to show you. Maybe even this stuff here, I don't know. I think I'm going to paint this separate at first and then put it on afterwards. Yeah, I think we'll do that. It will make it a little bit easier to deal with as a whole. So what we'll do is we'll get those paints out on the palette, and we're going to try and tackle this beast next. To make things potentially a little bit easier, I've got some of my jeweler's blocks here. I've got two of the flat square ones, and then this is the sort of rectangular shaped one. And yeah, that goes there, at least for now. I may have to move it around a little bit, so I'm just going to try and find myself a focus here for you real quick. And we're just going to, we'll start with some of this here along the side. I thought also, too, when I'm doing the weathering powders, this potentially could be an interesting way for you to, oh, look at that. It's also one way to make sure that it actually sort of stays in focus. I'm going to grab our big old brush over here. There he is. We're just going to start to fill in some of these shadow areas. just real quick here. Not going to really worry about following any lines. I'm more interested in filling in gaps at this point. And there's probably, oh my gosh, several layers of primer on this thing as well. So yeah, right now I've got actually a lot of the weight is actually being borne by the block. So that's to just put a little less contact on the figure itself. Now let's get ourselves a little bit of water going. I will most likely have to be throwing paint out here several times, so just bear with me while that happens. And this shaded base coat phase right here is probably going to take 2 segments. I'm just throwing that out there. Yeah, I'm already almost out of the, I think that is the black brown. The light umber wouldn't necessarily be horrible either. You know what? What the heck? I'm also even at this point going to start to throw out some of that. Basically no, it's more like raw sienna. It's not quite yellow ochre. I think it's a little too dark, or yeah, it's a little too dark for yellow ochre. It's more like raw sienna, I think, at this point here. And I'm hoping with the big brushes and such to be able to do some wet blending potentially here on the bus. I see I've got some. We'll be able to do our little exercise with the doing the headlights and taillights. Remember we used some. Oh, it wasn't the metallic medium. It was something more. Oh, it was the pearl white. Remember that. Although I don't know if I see a turbo dork that kind of does the same thing. Although Kathy sort of has a lot of the turbo dork paints, and I don't really want to take those out of her setup. Just again, looking to just fill some surfaces in. That is why I'm going to take some of the. This is the blue here. Doesn't have to be anything precise. We're probably going to put a lot of rust on this anyways. And we're going to be going over this with a lighter tone too. So what I'm going to try and do is get this side here, then stand it on the, this is also going to be my tire color. I think you've seen me use, was it tire black and dark blue rubber, something like that. I did the series of secret weapon tire colors essentially. But now we're giving this a hint of, just a hint of bluish gray here. The other thing I'm hoping is that the weathering powders will give us a bit of, what the heck, I'm going to take a little bit of this faded ultramarine, we'll mix it in with our brown. We've got a little bit of a lighter gray now. See, even now, just to slip in a little color on here. Who knows, maybe one of these cans gets painted green or something like that. Maybe with some sort of markings on it. It really kind of depends. I don't have any super solid plan other than this is a school bus. That's the only plan there is, and I'm just going to say these are metal for now. They could be something else entirely later on. Just going to shove some paint of some kind in there. Now, what's happening? Oh, we got a couple of fans back here. We've got our taillights back here. I'm just kind of looking to see what's going on. Okay. Now I'm wondering, are those fuel? I think it's definitely some sort of fuel because there's those. That's the other thing we could maybe play with, is some of the MIG ammo, the different oil effects or whatever. I also have some of the secret web, like the oil discharge and stuff. If I can find those, we'll use those. Now, of course, the MIG ammo products, those would be more of an oil-based. We could even use, heck, you could use from Badger, you could use their, let me just flip this over this way real quick here. You could use their ghost tints. Actually, kind of mix those with some regular paints, and you would have some kind of oily, greasy equivalent there. I do have some AK Interactive ones that I've never used, so maybe we'll even try those. That's one of those, we cross that particular bridge when we get to it. And the other thing I'm hoping is that the capillary action of, just like remember the terrain, I wanted to get down into really deep crevices and such, basically more effectively than something like the liquid-based paints or the acrylic-based paints could do. I will try to find the name of the company that makes this. I'm pretty sure I will be able to get an answer before I will be editing this, so I won't be able to tell you now, but by the time I'm doing the editing process, I think I'll have that information, and I can toss that either in the credits or whatever. I'm just starting to visualize this as being one of those items that is made into a STL file and you print it. Yes. And just, well, some news. I have actually now made my first successful 3D prints on the resin printer. This, well, if you're going to print it in resin, I'd have to print this in several pieces somehow. I'd have to like cut it into thirds or whatever. I guess that's possible. I don't know. I really don't know. That aspect of the 3D printing is very, 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 very new to me. I got some nice camo green colors, but then I've got all these yellows and I've got a blue. So I don't really feel the overwhelming need to be going for some camo greens or whatever. I thought, obviously, something like this would be hilarious as, what is that, Partridge Family Bus, right? Wasn't that the TV show from a while ago? I'm going to give you a little spin here. That's actually, it's a very interesting little Lazy Susan right there. And I'm just, continue with this here. None of this has to be super smooth or perfect. There's none of this that's going to escape weathering, dust, whatever, or chipping. So perfection in shading is not really what we're looking for here. We're looking more for interesting shading. Tip this over, not that far. Because the one thing about a solid chunk of resin is it's not super breakable. Now, I'm just going to have to hang on to that, if you don't mind. Wrong side. Let's do this side instead. Okay, is that a... Trying to figure out what exactly this is here. It looks... Oh, okay, that's... I guess that's going to be canvas. It's some sort of a first aid type of deal there. So, interesting. Looks like there's just a whole bunch of metal and such along the sides here. Even in these hubcaps, they're just going to get some cursory painting because, remember, mud, dust, all that sort of fun stuff, that's all going to go in here. This is going, yeah, wow, this is going to be interesting thing to tackle. Remember I don't even know what you would call it. I think it was the first, we just called it the magic bus. I think it was the first bus, and that had the crazy sort of steam/fusion. And well, actually, it was more of a steam thing because there was actually coal buckets of coal and shovels. So I'm thinking fusion doesn't really work with coal. I mean, I'm not up on my fossil fuels nor my nuclear energy, but I'm thinking those two don't really go hand in hand an awful lot. They're just throwing it. I don't even mind if some of that rusty color shows up from underneath there. That was just I think it was the red brown. Yep, red brown primer here from Badger, the Steino Res. And you've got your ebony flesh primer. That's basically what it was. I did not do the usual lighter layer over the top of this. I felt like I'd rather just do that with the regular paints, like we're doing now. So again, that's not going to be metal there. I'm really not going to fret too much about trying to get this color inside there. I'm going to let it would be neat though if that had more of a chrome-ish type look. So we'll see what we can do with that. Maybe do some of the heat effects or whatever. And to try and squeeze this all in, it's either going to have to be a two-part video, or I'm just going to have to do some off-camera things. So again, just taking some of this. I think it is called blue, or is it dark blue-gray? I think it might just be dark blue-gray. Okay. Working that in. Okay. Just go back to our raw sienna. We'll just call it that. And good enough for right now. We're going to set you over there. Would it be cheesy to do the school bus yellow on here? Maybe. But if it's lighter, it also gives me the chance to do some chipping and other fun things. So we're going to fudge it here. We're actually going to give this some yellow. It really, I almost said in reality, really. In this reality, I'm saying it's going to be yellow like the school bus. This over here is going to be not yellow. Something that big, I want to be able to keep the interest going on that, but also not have things that are too distracting. I think if this is yellow, it won't detract from the overall vehicle. And yeah, the big old brushes like this, they let me work fast. Don't have to worry about putting any kind of abuse on the brush at all. Now, this here, not going to go with the yellow. I'll just go with some kind of metal-ish color on this, I think. Unless I change my mind, and that I retain the prerogative to do so at any time. That seems so tiny and quaint after holding the beast. Just going to give that some grays. Obviously, let's say you have maybe I will give it this color. I don't know which end of this is up and down. That obviously your your safety escape hatch is now a machine gunner's hatch. Just set that right there. So I'm going to actually lower this down here. Make sure we get you a focus on that. Let's start to go a little bit lighter here. A little bit lighter. Okay. I'm going to throw little bit. What is this? The light, dark golden brown. That's what this is. Think of it as sepia liner. We have used this color before effectively as sepia liner. There we go. That's a little bit warmer now. Just a touch warmer. Using our big old brush here at nice broad strokes. This is such a dominant force. Again, not trying to paint this completely, but just have it in place so that when I start to think about, well, what's going to happen with those windows, then I'll know, all right, this is about how light or dark I really want to go with that. This down here, all right, what the heck. We'll just go school bus color on that. Now, you know what, it shows to do the yellow part first because, well, it's deeper than all the rest of this other stuff and a little bit easier to paint over the top of this. So this is pretty much what we're going to focus on, the yellow, for the rest of this little segment right here. I'm not going to go after this section here yet because that's probably what I'm going to have to hang on to. I'm going to assume that is a light up there. We've got our 3 little lights up here. Looking forward to writing school bus on there unless we give it a different name. Either way could be interesting. That could be kind of funny for the bus to have its own name written there where school bus would be. Maybe just like someone has graffitied it there instead of that more official type thing. But then there is also the humor of just some big old thing like this, some beast like that, just saying school bus. Like it's the one part of it that's still exactly the same as it normally would be. I think you can see why I didn't really get too bent out of shape over what was being painted on the windows there. Like I said, we will hit some of that stuff in the next segment. All right, so yellow here as well. This is another thing. I've got to figure, okay, what part's been added on? What part's still the original bus? Would that still actually be yellow there? Would it not be? A touch of that yellow in there again. I just almost called it sepia liner. Yeah. Yep, that's typically black right there, so maybe we'll just let that go. The tools here, that's going to, I'm thinking just giving it a red handle. Kind of the fire axe type thing. All right. You can see it not going to be super delicate with all this. Just looking to get some cursory shading on this. Could I have sprayed all this with the airbrush? Yeah, I could have, but then you're talking about masking and all this other kind of stuff, and that just ultimately, for me, masking a bunch of things takes up way more time than just painting it this way. For someone else who maybe they're used to doing that, well, it's a whole different ball game there. And there is certainly nothing wrong with that. The other reason I don't mind some of the crossing over here of the yellow with the school bus is, well, if some of that is going to be metal, it would reflect slightly at least a little bit of a reflection there. So let's see. I want to see what's happening on the back of this bus here. Well, there's really not a whole lot of yellow there. Not a whole bunch. We got these fans over here. There's a touch of it back here, but that's about it. Everything else is metal plates and other such things. I am going to look at how this is very dark, actually. This color is not light by any stretch of the imagination. You can see why I didn't really spend a whole lot of time painting the I-beams here. This is essentially a middle tone. It will get so much brighter than this. All right. And some more. Let's go up here with some more. Okay. And what the heck, I am just going to go in here and hit this. Yep, I'll do that. I don't even mind if some of that bluish color mix in with it. I'm going to say that, no. I'll say that this is the top. What the heck? I'll just make that decision there. I have no idea what the actual thing just kind of looks like. We're just going to make that assumption. Now I'm going to start to add some yellow into this. I might go and, for some areas here, get some of the smaller brushes too. And it's going to, look at this, let that brush work some of its magic there. The Pro Acryls are plenty opaque. Even the yellows will cover. I'm sort of hoping that I can do something like this, where kind of feathering out that color. It's almost like we're using oil paints in a way. I haven't exactly washed my brush a bunch of times either, which means that that yellow is, it's mixed with a few other things in here too. Still not worried about those tools or anything. So what I'm going to do is get this caught up everywhere on the rest of the bus here, and then we're just going to catch up. I'll catch up with you here on the other side. So we're going to end this segment, and I'll just continue here with my yellow shading, because this is some of the most important of the shading that's got to be done anyway. Look at this. So again, just, I know it's hard for me to keep this all on screen here. So there we go. That's, now you can see it. Like that. There we go. So I'm just going to do a brief pause here, and we'll come right back, and we'll do the yellow on this side, and then do some of the finish shading on that. And we're going to do that next. Let's continue on with our lighter colors here on our bus. Looking forward to doing some of those streaks like you have, like here especially, streaks that run down this way. That's going to be very fun. The temptation will be to do too much, although I'm just, as I'm thinking about it here, you've got something like this, it's kind of, it's hard to get to be too much on something like this. Because, yeah, that's, so I'm thinking about it here. this is a pretty crazy. There's a machine gun on top of the school bus, all other kinds of crazy things. So I'm thinking, yeah, that's gonna be a little bit difficult to get unrealistic, shall we say? There's axes. There's a well, what would you say? There's a cattle prow. There's a steam shovel or something on the front of this thing. So yeah, I think we're pretty well into the realm of the non-realistic to start with here. Okay, just again, don't really care about some of that other stuff. Just gonna keep working fast here. I'll go back around this way. I changed the temperature of that color. It was a little bit more towards the orange in this new round of applications. Working this nice and fast. I can always go out to the edges of the windows again, which are gonna also have, well, chipping, rust, soot, dust, any number of weathering things down there. I was about to sort of get crazy about painting out, and then I realized, yeah, there's no point in worrying about that. Now let's see what's left over on the back here of this thing. And well, the exciting news about the 3D printing is also a different type of news in that I have no more gloves. The few gloves that I have left are just strictly saved for the 3D printing. So this is something I wouldn't mind having a glove for, but I am not going to have a glove for it because again, the few that I've got left, well, they're spoken for. We are now gonna swing back around here and let's start to just do a little bit more with our yellow. Like you do. Get rid of that little burr, whatever that was. And now I'm just going to focus on the roof at this point. I'm not even sure how much lighter I want the rest of it to be as far as down the sides here, because that's where there's going to be, again, a lot of chipping, weathering, that sort of thing. So my entire focus at this point is just going to be here on the roof. And basically anything that's facing upwards. I'm going to move this, though. I'm trying to do this a couple of reasons here. First of all, I'm thinking it'll keep it stationary, so there'll be less chance of this wandering off camera for you guys if it's not in my hands. Now, and at this point now, there's going to be an awful lot of painting in just this one area here. Look at, there's even still some of those initial paint coat. Those are still wet. That's how fast we've been working this. We will do the rest of our yellows over here. And I tried to make sure I had enough of this to last at least through this part of the process. Okay, good. That's relatively on screen, and we're just going to hit that here. And you have to figure too, okay, this is not going to be like factory yellow school bus here, just for, well, reasons. So if it's not the perfect school bus yellow, who the heck cares? There's going to be so much other stuff going on with this. I really don't think that's going to be a colossal issue. All right. Here we go. Just I realize for a lot of folks, they're just kind of horrified at this. They would see this as a situation for their airbrushes. But when you got all of this stuff, if this was just, it didn't have all this extra stuff on it, then I'd say, well, yeah, okay, all right, go ahead. But with all of this paraphernalia on here, I'm thinking not necessarily. So we're gonna, and you can see I'm bringing in some of that. I think it is basically a yellow ochre color with the yellow. And I'm also going to change my lights here. I need to get something out of my way. There. That's a little better. That's probably that little housing there on the taillight. That might also be done in black too. But you can see how we're starting to, we're scumbling here a little bit, and that it's starting to mix things slightly. Because we've got enough paint out here. We've got the brush has lots of paint in it. There's a decent amount of paint on the surface. We are not working on as many areas. So that was a little bit of strategery there. See how it gets a bit lighter. I'm going to make sure I can keep that in view for you. I suppose you could almost do the sponge painting type thing too. But in a way, we're just substituting the big old craft brush here for something like that. And again, not really worried about this being super smooth because, well, that little thing we call weathering comes along mighty handy. And really, the shading on a larger surface like this, you're almost better off foregoing that. And it's something I've just seen with military vehicles. When you put a whole ton of shading on them, it actually, even the full size thing, just because of the way light hits it and the way it's painted, doesn't necessarily have a ton of shading on it. So sometimes, in this case, we almost let the weathering do some of the shading as well. Like any kind of streaks like that, that's going to show this as a rounded or semi-rounded surface more than any kind of light to dark shading that we could do here, if that makes any sense. So now any sort of lighter colors there is going to be focused more towards the top of the vehicle. I'm just going to shoot a little bit of this lighter, just in a couple of spots here. Nothing important. And then I'm going to make sure we've got focus on that. Throw out a little bit more of my, what is it, golden yellow. So that's what we got there. Throw that over here so we've got it. We'll go again a little bit of that yellow ochre, which I'm pretty sure. No, it's golden brown. Okay, not golden yellow, but golden brown. Yeah, and yes, the name of that was out of focus because all the focus is concentrated, well, at least hopefully down here. And this is the part where I'm hoping that I can focus in my energy on making things lighter. Up here, I'm even going to take some of the paint out of it, even going to use my finger for some blending here. You can see the use of those kind of feathering style brush strokes. turn this baby around. And a little discoloration or whatever, that's not going to hurt either. So much chipping and stuff is going to happen on this. What would seem to be very rough right now is not going to be terribly rough. I am going to turn down those lights. You'd almost think it was oil paint the way it's shining there. So again, we're just scumbling this in. We'll continue that all the way along the back of the roof of the bus here. So I'm thinking if I do one of these drums as red or a couple of those as red, then maybe we'll do just caution stripes on these things. Yeah, you gotta have caution stripes, right? They're totally useless. Why would you ever have those there? Yet I think it could be interesting to maybe have those there. So we do the last little bit of this layer on the roof. Then we'll move to a couple areas on the bus. Last final areas there. Like this. This is, it's not even the final shading on the yellow at all. At a certain point, I have to, again, see what's going on with the other parts of the bus here before I know, okay, I can actually go in here and make this lighter. Okay, so what we're going to do is that is enough with our yellow for now. And then we're going to get into some of these other sections here. Maybe we'll just tackle some of the metals here first. To keep it simple, tackle some of those metals, and then we'll see what we're doing up top there on the tires and other such things. All right, so we are going to give that a few minutes to dry there. And like I said, we're going to hit some of this stuff, and we're going to do that next. So with everything else in place, again, not going to mess around with the yellows anymore at this point here. What I am going to do, though, is mix myself some metal colors here. I'm also going to hit this on the tires. This is that sort of bluish gray color. Got these tires up here. We'll just hit those real quick. Like so. It's the same craft brush we were just doing all the yellows with. You'll probably see me break out the smaller number 8 rounds as well. But I got myself a nice little wedge shape here, and what are we going to do? We're just going to, these, I'm going to say those are ammo cases. I'm going to make those, I am going to make those a green. Just going to get a hint of my metal in there. I will take a touch of water to this, make it flow a little bit more. And this is going to also act as a nice little contrast to our yellows. This is why I wasn't worried about getting right up to the edge, because, well, I know I was going to be doing this. And yeah, I can go in later and put some maybe some of the yellow in those areas, or I just say the heck with it and just weather the heck out of it and let lots of streaking and rust go down there, because why not? It's not necessary, actually, on some of these, it's usually the windows are right next to each other and it's all metal from end to end. So I've seen buses that way too, and this is certainly not a real school bus by any stretch of the imagination. I won't make all of these metal. I'll maybe have this one be just kind of a steel color, then maybe one that's red in the middle or whatever. Yeah, let's do this one as just a metal color here. That, I think we will do that one as metal up here. I'm gonna be doing those glazes, remember, with the weathering powders, because I think that could be really interesting. I really think it could be. Especially after seeing what they could do on that tower. I'm really, really curious about that. I want to see what they can do. If I don't like it, I paint over the top of them. What does it matter? It's no big deal. And I did some more of the yellow on the shovel part there on the front of the bus, so I did a little bit more on that as well. I'm just going to hit this as some kind of a metal here on this drum. So we'll just do each drum maybe a slightly different color. I don't know. Not all of them the same. I will actually going to take a little bit of my brown here, mix it with that blue. This little housing here for the machine gun. I'm just going to get some dirt and mud down into this thing too. Like I said, not going to go crazy with that. I'll just do these as a metal color here too. And I don't really have to worry about being precise here, because again, another area where some kind of water would collect, and I can always go back in later to clean things up. We're going to get this manifold right here. Touch of our metal color on that. And I've got a couple of different colors. I can take that pale green and just do a few spots with it. Then we'll change it up and we'll go to a different one. We've got that bluish gray that we can use. Again, I'm just going to hit these with some lighter tone and a lot of I'm going to see what I can do with some other glazes plus the weathering powders before I get too far out in front of this here. I'm going to do these fans right here. And whatever that is there, I just don't know what that really is, but we'll just do it anyways. Oh, does that potentially gas mask there, I'm thinking? And all the while thinking, okay, what's going to be just a straight up metal? What's going to be painted metal? And it's going to be messy. It's not going to be some squeaky clean process where everything is all nice and neat and everything. Not going to be that way. And now I am just going to very quickly start to toss in some more of my Metal color might have to get some more of that blue, blue-gray color. What is it called? Blue-black? I thought so. It sort of makes sense because what's the secret weapon color? Tire black. And it has that sort of a bluish tone to it. Here, I'm going to let that mix with a little bit of the brown. And we'll get a chisel edge on that and poof. Let's get some of this right here. I don't quite know what that is, but we'll just make it that color metal for right now. There's a backpack over there. The tires over here. And now take some of that seafoam green. We're going to really grind that into the brush and make it more of a filbert style brush. And it's really not a dry brush because there is some blending going on, believe it or not, actual wet blending on here, like with the tire there. And even a bit here on our metals there, because we are working fast enough, believe it or not, that this is not just a simple dry brush. It's more of a feathered brushstroke. Think along the lines of what we did with some of the oil painting type things. Now I'm going to maybe use some of that's our blue color there. And I'm looking for this, the stack here, exhaust, and I have to remember that's a window there. I think on one of the other ones I just sort of painted it all a rust color, and I went, oh, well, yeah, it's kind of hard to see out of a rusty window, but such is how life goes. And now again, we're just gonna see it just like we do with the oils there. Okay, we press that down. We got a nice big shape there, and it doesn't take long before these type of things start to emerge. Maybe not a whole bunch on the tires. I can even just take my finger in there and wipe some of that away. Let's get these guys up here. Like I said, I know it will be difficult for some of you to approach it this way because you're going to want to just, even like this little thing right here, you're going to want to paint it in a very dainty fashion. And, well, we don't do dainty here. That just doesn't happen. What else? I'm just going to throw this up here. Then I'll switch it back to that sort of pale green again, and just going to make sure that is where you can see it, and we'll again, that might be some other color, maybe red, maybe whatever. Okay, let's get some lighter stuff going on this ring. That will certainly, I think, have some rust and staining on it. Not going to be shy about using my hands there. Same here. flip it around. Now I'm going to go to that sky blue color again. Because I'm pretty sure on some of the other earlier vehicles, there were times where I really spent too much time on something that ended up being quite literally weathered away. And I went, well, yeah, I really could have said, like, even this, if it's going to be sitting there on the side of the vehicle, all of this stuff here, it's just going to be getting rusty. Unless they just put it on there earlier that morning, the second that stuff goes on the side of the vehicle, that's going to start getting rusty. So we'll be able to access some of our rust effects for sure there. Now that is a little bit different. I almost reached in for some of my tan over there, but we'll do that later. Look at it. I'm just scumbling. I mean, this is genuine. Boom. Scumbling here, taking my finger. And look at that. It just did a little bit of wet blending there. Big deal? Not a big deal. Let a little more water get into this. I'm going to use some of this darker metal color along this. Again, not quite sure if that's ammo box or whatever, but whatever. I can still go far later. I mean, that is down in the corner there. That's something that is an off-white. So we're not even to off-white yet as far as how light we've gone with some of this. You can see I'm attacking this from almost a bit of an angle here again. Filbert with the brush. And I will be going in with a smaller brush to, let's get just a little bit of lighter stuff on that hubcap there. We're gonna maybe do this one and metal color as well. And then we're talking about some green. I could put green out there, or I could just mix some. And depending on how much time I've got left here, I think I'll just do non-metal surfaces in a separate segment here. We're going to look at this. We're just taking the brush, swiping it along this way. I'm thinking these are just sort of some kind of searchlights that are added onto here, or spotlights. So I think that is what we will do next. Is do some of the like the handles of some of the backpacks. Whatever this is up here, I think that's what we'll tackle next. I just took a little bit of that off-white. We'll mix it in with our gray too. Again, just trying to recall the lessons learned from those earlier vehicles where I really could have gone a little less with the super duper mixing and shading and all that other kind of stuff when it just didn't show up at all. Swing this back around again. Well, a bunch of tools over here. Well, and things like this, like our stretcher there. How nice of them to think about first aid. Just hitting that real quick there. Okay. Going to take my blue here, some of that off-white. And just to think about some of the last little highlight things here. Again, nothing that I'm really going to get too concerned about, because all of that stuff, we're going to have so much of the soot and dust and everything filling in those areas. I remember some of those other ones, I did all kinds of stuff in there, only to realize, yeah, that's all just going to get filled in. So there's use of resources, basically, effective use of time and resources. And there's not. And we definitely want to keep this in the effective use category. Even stuff like that. We'll go back in and maybe do some chrome type things. So we're going to say this is good here for our metals. And what we'll now do is go in here, paint these backpacks and stuff like this, things that are not just our metal color. And we're going to do that next. Let's work on a couple of different surfaces here. And I've got some red out on the palette, renewed some of my other colors, but let's see if we can't make something that is vaguely green here. Something like a camo green. So look at that. Took a little bit of that blue. Got a little bit of the sepia color there. So that's something that's got a little bit of a greenishness to it. And we're just going to go diving in here like this. We could always do some darker green glazes over it too. We're also going to add some lighter colors. But for right now, no better way to have color unity than to make a green out of the colors that are already on this bus. I mean, why not? Nice little camo green here on these ammo boxes. That metal strap, I'll hit that later. Like I said, we're trying to get to the weathering phase of this, so I will just kind of introduce a few things here. I thought about making this a multi-part episode, but it's a little bit difficult because, well, what do I call this? If there's no weathering on there, and then the other one is just weathering, well, it gets a little, it's a little difficult for me anyways. Once again, see, just some of these, those might actually be tan as well. But then I want this thing to maybe be tan, although maybe everything is just all camo colored. I don't know. At this point, you know what? I will hit that with some green as well. Okay. Especially on some of this canvas type stuff here, I would actually like to have a lot of the dust in here and down in those crevices. So that does mean, I think, ensuring that this part of the green doesn't get too light. Just doesn't get too light. So what's here on the back? I got a backpack over here. Then I might even, I see there's some more of the metals that I could hit too. Just going to take some of that lighter sky blue. We'll scumble that into the brush, and we'll hit whatever this is. Maybe these will be glowing red here. As I said, it's more about setting things up here than it is just, again, how to paint a school bus. Either that or this is just going to be a longer video. This one might be a 3-hour one, just to fill you in on that. It could well be a wee bit longer. So there's a little bit of my white there. That's going to make that green lighter now. Throw some of that. As I see a canteen over here. We got a backpack here. That's definitely, I'm fairly certain that is some kind of gas mask sort of a deal there. Hitting this really quick. So, okay, I'm just doing that one barrel with a greenish color just to see how that's going to look. Maybe this one just stays darker and we just make it all rusty. Thinking that's what I might do on that one barrel. That actually might be pretty fun, doing something like that. Again, to my lighter green here. Oh, what the heck. I'll just hit this one as green. I know it's held at a weird angle for you, but no big deal. And I think this will be the last bit of highlighting that happens. Same here on our ammo crates. Get this side of whatever this canvas is covering up here. And the nice thing is it won't stand out too much from our school bus yellow because it's, well, we effectively used almost all the same colors that were in that yellow and just mixed them with everything that we used to make our metals so far. That just about gets us to where we have this sepia type color for our stretcher. Like so. I really am curious to see what's going to happen. Yeah, I'm going to actually mix a little touch of the pale green in there with that. What's going to happen when we do the glazes with the, I'm going to be using some earth colors, some soil colors. Not necessarily, like on these things, it won't precisely be about weathering per se. It'll actually be as much about, just getting some shading and lights and some darks in there too, as just strictly weathering. Throw a touch of that up there. And on this pack here, I'm going to leave those alone. Good enough. Where's that? There's my green again. Kind of remix that a bit here. Touch of the yellow in with that. And once we throw all the weathering stuff in there, it's not going to be very noticeable. We're going to leave that. Let's go back here and lighten up that backpack, such as it is. Then we were thinking about some of the handles on those axes and picks, because I toned down that red for sure. So let's give this a bit of a red axe handle here. And yeah, this is the only axe handle on this side. That one not gonna do that too. These taillights, I'm just trying to figure out a good way to hold this here. That's not going to be their final color, but I need to make sure that I remember to put something there. Okay, those are almost entirely covered up by that backpack. I'm just going to throw some color on that. Those we're going to get some hazard stripes just because. And for the heck of it, I'm going to make that one red. I don't know why. There's 3 of them. It seems fun to actually make one of those 3 a slightly different color. Hit this axe handle. The pickaxe there. Now just looking at something here to no, okay. See what we can do there for some sort of caution stripe thing. And this is, I'm hoping now, where something like one of our 222 liners is going to prove helpful. Okay. We'll touch a yellow or red. Into that yellow now, it becomes almost a little bit on the orangey side. Okay, I'm gonna hold this, and hopefully you'll be able to see what I'm doing. I'm gonna start this stripe down here. Like that. And it doesn't have to be perfect because, again, I can take my black and kind of fix things up, but you can see where that's starting to go. I need to make it more angled. And you can really see that how handy this brush is, because look at how far down that goes, but see how it doesn't completely lose its shape. All very positive things. And the goal is to end this up so that I have, so I got my piece right here. Well, then I got another triangle on the opposite side there. What I will do is, since I effectively have that marked out for me, here, let's mark it on the other side. I think, well, you can see what I'm doing here, but I conveniently can actually see both of the, see the stripes that are on the other side that I painted, so I can sort of repeat that angle. And what the heck, maybe I'll do that on the second one here too. All right. And that's going to come out from here. like that. Ideally, maybe not quite that repetitious, but for such a minor element that may not even get noticed, I think we're good there. Just like on the other one, we get our little triangle right there. There's that. And it will continue. We'll continue our stripes down this way. Again, that brush can get way down into that. I can't even see what it's doing. I cannot actually see where it's putting the paint, but I know because it's long enough that it's definitely getting the paint down in there. Then we finish up our caution stripe there. And now I'm going to dive into my red over here, and what the heck? Gonna make the ends of these some kind of red. Is it gonna be a really bold red like this? I don't know just yet. That just, again, another little touch of color. If it's too bright of a red, I think that when you go to put the weathering over the top of it, the rust will get lost there. If that's what we're going to put on that, any kind of corrosion or whatever. Yeah, if these things are some kind of dye, I just made them red because if this way I see them now, if I don't like them, I can make them green, I can make them blue. I might just do that anyways. Might just do that anyways. And I do realize there's going to be points of this where you're like, wait a minute, can't see that. What's going on there? Now, I will lighten up some of these reds. Like here. Taking some of that yellow just like we would say with clear red, clear yellow. I don't want that to get too orange because if, like I said, if it does, it'll be lost in all of the rust and other weathering. And this is actually, I am going to make that the handle on that shovel red. I think, yeah, I think it needed something there. What we are going to do briefly here, going to take some of this is pale yellow. Let's get this back out on the palette over here. We'll mix that with some of get some of that sepia. I'm looking for a few lighter colors on this. Okay. Like this. Now, I think what we're going to start to do in our next phase is we're going to see what happens when we glaze with the weathering powders more for shading than for weathering. I want to see what happens with that. I think that could be very interesting. You could say we're getting a little bit more into the canvas type of a thing here. I'm even, for the heck of it, doing a little stippling there. Remember, all of this going to get some hefty amounts of shading. Oh, actually, I'm seeing, I didn't notice this before, but I'm going to hit before I forget all about these things, the straps that are holding this down. Like that. What else do I want to? Actually, going to hit some of these ropes with a touch of the brown here because they're a little too greenish. All right, better. Better there. Up here. And I'm just going to get some white on these lights here as I'm thinking about it. And I do think there's going to be some big transformations in all this stuff. Once we get, like I said, in that next step where we're going to take our weathering powders, the brown and the black especially. We're not going to be using a rusty color. We're not going to be using the light tan or anything. We're not thinking mud spatters. We're not thinking anything like that. We are just thinking of the weathering powders as a means to a shading end. That's what we're looking for, is to do some shading. I'm going to just pop in a couple of lights there, all of those packs and everything else. Same over here. Straps right there. A little bit of my little lighter green on that. Just going to use my finger to blend it in because I'm not quite sold on that being actually metal there. It's almost more like that hard suitcase type material or whatever. Back to a couple of lights on this. Again, what have you seen from shaded base coat, especially the last video? Shaded base coat is a rougher sort of an application. That's the nature of that particular beast. And here, even though this is not necessarily supposed to be that color, I happen to be here. Just gonna get some lighter on the top of these guys. And these, I'm just gonna take some of that brown and blue and make those dark. I'm just settled on those. I think they should definitely be black or blackish and not yellow like the rest of the bust. And then the last thing we're going to do here is I could do this with brown liner too. I'm just going to hit it with this. I'll probably actually take some sort of brown liner. But the idea is, oh, look, we clean this up here. All of a sudden, that other little bit of the lights that we sort of were dry brushing in there, those disappear. Same sort of a cleanup over on this side. And this is where some of the stripes got to be a little bit too thick there. So guess what? This is where we adjust it with our darker color now. And there will be some chipping on this too. It's another way to deal with some freehand lines that maybe weren't as straight or as the right angle as you wanted. Now we are fairly well set on these caution stripes. Boom. There you have it. Now, actually, what would be interesting is to use some of the fluorescents. There's actually fluorescent whites that some companies are made. I know Green Stuff World has it. I think maybe Turbo Dork or even the pearlescent, and put that in the yellow, and then it looks kind of like that caution tape. I am going to just hit these before we put our glazes onto that, because I think that should be more wood and not just the canvas color. Again, that could have just been green, like it's a military green or whatever, but I thought maybe we'll do this instead. So that takes care of all that. What we're going to do next is we will grab some stuff like our black here, some of the browns. We got this dark earth here, and some other darker ones. I think soil is another name of it's a third company here, and we'll mix these with our pigment fixer, and we'll see what we can do with that next. So what I want to do at this point is take my liquid pigment fixer. You could use, this is the MIG ammo, you could use the secret weapon pigment fixer. We've used them both. I have a few pigments out here, just a couple. Black, essentially a brown, and then a reddish brown. The goal is not to do the weathering stuff. This is more about the shading that we talked about. Now I also have just a couple of pipettes, some extra sponges here. And the idea is I'm going to throw a little bit of that to our powder here and turn this into a liquid. Now that's really, 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 really thick. We will also have it be a touch more translucent. Now what I'm also going to do is I'm going to put some in, I think, a different, I'm going to have a second little container here, like that, so that I can thin this down. It's easier to add this stuff than it is to subtract it. Got to remember too, if I'm going to remove this stuff, it's got to happen fast. Can't just kind of dawdle on this. Got to work fast. So 1 second here. Let me just move my lights a touch. Now I can actually get to this thing. I'm just going to hit the inside of the hubcap here. My goodness, the capillary action of that is unbelievable. Wow. That is incredible. Do this over here, and it's amazing what that can do. Very impressive. Next up, I'll start to hit some of these other things. I'll go with some of the deeper things. And I keep thinking, like, all these little holes right here, these guys, actually, I think I could actually zoom in a bit for you. It could be, I might have to jigger things around now and then, but I do think you'll be able to see this. Yeah. Oh my gosh, it would have been so painful to get this stuff all the way down into those little circles with the water. It wouldn't do it. I tried it just to satisfy myself to see, am I just imagining things here, or is this for real? And oh, it was for real. Most definitely for real. And this, I'm just going to make that the usual black that I've seen on the sides of school buses. I'm actually gonna got some water over here. I just gotta get that out of the way because I keep wanting to stick this brush in there. That is not what I'm looking for. So this is it now. We'll see what happens when this dries. Think of this as maybe a faster drying alternative than something like oil washes. Just again, something to think about. Do you have to do this? Not at all. This is me experimenting to see will it work. What do I always say about experiment? Always constantly experiment, test the limits, see what's going to work. As soon as you find out something doesn't work, well, a couple of things. Now you know it doesn't work, and you also maybe have a chance to try something else that does based on the information of, well, that didn't work. Is it fun to have something not work? Not at all. Definitely not very fun. You'll notice that I'm just sticking with what's black here as well. I'm not mixing this with brown just yet. And I want to see just how fast this will dry because it is a little bit different than the Secret Weapon Pigment Fixer. And I will always be having my sponges right there at the ready so that I can remove this stuff because it has to happen fast. If it doesn't happen fast, it doesn't happen at all. So I'm just going to give that a quick little swipe there. See that? Wasn't much. Okay. Just going to move that over to here. There might be some parts of this on the bus. That's the other reason why some things I just had to do off screen because there is no way for me to hold it and keep it on camera in any sort of easy fashion. So if you're wondering, like, wait a minute, why does that spot have some more stuff on it than last time? It's because I tried to get it on camera and there was just no way. This is the main event anyway, is this stuff. All the other things that I've done before this were really just to set up this portion because this is the big experiment. I want to see what's going to happen here. And as I said, I can always add more. Like this one here, I went darker with that. I'm really glad I have this second little container of my, I almost called it an oil wash, of my pigment fixer with pigment. Let's take some away there and let's do this again. On these windows. And I noticed that it does sink into all of those little diamond shapes. Definitely easier, and it sort of stays where I need it to be a little bit easier because of that capillary action, that the tension that it will stay with much greater than say the water. And it's also not going to give me the watermarks because, well, there's no water. I will say that the MIG Ammo Pigment Fixer there's a smell to that, whereas the Secret Weapon Pigment Fixer is that's just a liquid, doesn't have any kind of smell to it. And by smell, I mean, okay, around the level of rubbing alcohol or something like that. So if I was doing this in rubbing alcohol, there would be a little bit of a scent to it. Nothing earth-shattering, nothing that's gonna... Yeah, just keep going with this. And depending on how long this takes her, I might just do one side with this. I don't know. I'm trying to keep this to a 2.5-hour video and not a 3-hour video, and I don't have time to film it in 2 parts because that doesn't just double the filming time, it doubles the editing time, the rendering time, and most importantly, the upload time. I can only upload one at a time. And quite frankly, what's on the other side of this is the same as this. I mean, it's basically the same thing. So, okay. I'm curious to see what's going to happen with the stuff on the top as well. Now, this maybe I'd like to not do too much with that with the black, mostly because I was hoping to do that with those, like the purple heat and the different secret weapon heat cores. Okay, so we're going to let that dry. We're going to go up here. We are going to hit this. Remember, there will be rust over the top of this as well. So, okay. Also keep in mind, probably the first thing that we're going to do when it comes to the weathering side of this is actually we're going to do a little bit with paint first, because we want to do some chipping on there. So think chipping first, and then we'll add some of the streaking and the rust effects and other such things with our powders. I'm going to move this way. And boy, at this point, this is where I'm curious now. Okay, this looks very, how does that dry? Because it looks like it's a lot, and I don't necessarily think it's that much. I really don't think that it is. Again, I'm going to be as curious as much as the next person to see how that dries. It doesn't have to be, like I said, super precise because of all the dust and dirt that's going to go over the top of this. Okay. Good enough there. Okay, see how much darker that is. I don't know. I don't know if I want it that dark. I could take the sponge and wipe it away, but I'm trying to actually influence this without having to do as much with the sponges, if that makes any sense. So I really want to keep that minimal with the sponges. All right. The tires will do a little bit here. Wow. It actually went this way. It went just as far to the other side of it as it did where gravity would normally take it. That's kind of funny. So I'm gonna do this on my drums over here. Now this one, we were just gonna have that really be rusted up like crazy. This, I think, on this is where we're really gonna see just how true it is. I think it's true. Where we're not gonna get the watermarks because of just the nature of the pigment fixer. And if there's some spatters from this, I mean, even the acrylic, if I was doing this with just a standard acrylic glaze, there could likely be spatter anyways. Spin this back around this way. We'll get these. This is where you can really see, like, look at how that just surrounds that. I'm telling you, if it was just a standard kind of acrylic wash, it would really not do that. Not really. All right. Some more of the black here. Just sticking with the black at this point. These last couple of drums over here. Look at how that just goes right down there. I know it looks an awful lot like a standard sort of acrylic glaze, but trust me, it is not. I just know from doing this so many times before that yeah, that is way more than what an acrylic glaze would do as far as the capillary action. So okay, those now have some shading. Let's see what we can do. Use my... Oh, look at that. That's good enough. I think you can see what's going on there. We will start with this. Okay, I'm going to take some away. I actually just have my little container over here. That really sinks down into all of the little... where these fans are. We'll see what the sponge is going to get me here too. It's kind of liberating here to know that there's going to be weathering after this. This is why I use this on the towers, because it's not like a miniature where you are trying to really be precise. This is not miniature painting and sort of that classic sense of the word. This is... I know I always say, well, vehicles, miniatures, they're all the same, but the medium can be different. It's like oil painting. You'd have a little different approach with that, perhaps. I'm going to get a little more of my black in here. This, believe me, this would have taken probably 3 times as long. If I just tried to do this only with just acrylic stuff, it would have taken longer because I wouldn't have had the capillary action. I've said that word a bazillion times already, but it's a big deal. It really is a big deal. Look at what it's doing here. I think I can do something like this for you. Look at what it's doing there. See how it already was following along those little rivets. Then we just do something like that. We take some of it away. Now on this case, I'm going to throw some black on this one. On the other one, I'm going to try and maybe throw some brown. Mix some brown with the black on that and just change it, shift it a little bit. Here I'm actually going to throw some more of the black in there with the idea that when I get the rust and the dirt and everything else in there, it's going to fill in some of those areas too. And I know this also probably looks kind of on the... it looks kind of on the messy side. Well, I have to think ahead about the rust and what is that going to have? What's that going to change on this thing? So again, now we've got much more of the brown here. It's basically a very dark brown that I just mixed. That's going to go on to our backpack here. Like so, and I may also go back in with some lighter colors even after the weathering part of it. And I mean the rust and the dust and everything. And I might bring back some lighter parts there on this and on some of the other metal things. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, now we're gonna tilt this over on its side just a bit, and we're gonna go after some of these elements. There's that same brown, using it on this. Take some of it away. See that little quick stroke that I did on that to take some of it away? We'll do some of the same over here. Like that. And continue on. There's like a whole bunch of little pouches here all kind of together. Smaller sponge, take some away. And at this point now, I'm just going to go with a straight up brown for this guy over here. Right there. You can see how easily that flows as opposed to maybe something that's just water. I can also use the brush. See how I'm taking up some of the extra there? Then I can, one thing, I go to my sponge here. I can even do that. See, now it's got a little bit of stippling going on there. Then this pack over here. Oh, I guess I will. Gonna throw a little shading into this. But you notice that I didn't hit it very much because that's all gonna run down, and it'll run down onto our yellow there. Capillary action giveth and taketh away. So always have to be aware. And if need be, I just do a second round. So I think what we're going to do is we will let this stuff dry here. I will hit the other side of this. And what we'll do is then we'll go on. The first thing we'll do, like I said, we'll just take some paint and we'll do some chipping with these guys, with the sponges here. Position that around certain areas there. And then the last thing we'll do is our dust effects, mud effects, rust effects, all that sort of stuff. That'll be the very last thing that we try to do. Like so. All right. I'll do this little, whatever it is, it's a housing for some lights there. Not a whole lot of stuff on it. It's pretty minimal here. Just I want to control it as much as I can. There's a little bit there. Just going to get some of this down into here too. This is especially another area where I really need that to kind of sink down. Going to use just a little bit of the pigment fixer here, and that's just to make it all flow. Again, take some away. All right, we'll let all this stuff set here. See how that looks, and we'll be right back with our rust effects and other fun stuff. Let's get to another aspect of weathering here, and that's going to be some of the chipping, some of the rust, that kind of stuff. Now I did put out, we've got our burnt sienna, black brown. I haven't really used those for this yet. Again, it's all about experimenting. Now we've got the leftover sponges here that we've been using, and I've just torn these up into some random shapes. And the idea is we've got those two paints out here. I'm going to make this even more irregular here. So you can really just any kind of a square edge is gone, like so. And this, it depends. I like to sometimes have a little bit of the rust color in there too. But you can see, I'm going to get this water out of the way. As I do this, like that's maybe a little bit too blocky. A couple things you could do. Well, I could just take another paper towel here and remove some of it. So I did that. Now I'm going to find some places here that are a little more obvious for you. So I think you see what happened there. We got a smudge here. Oh, look at that. Went from a smudge to a chip. How's that? Now the other thing too, the shape of these sponges kind of matters too. I found that out the hard way. So we've got a different little sponge here. We're gonna just grab some of this. And what I'm hoping to do, it's working. So the idea is, see the chips are oriented more vertically there. Yeah, I found this out the hard way, that you can get a more targeted angle if you shape the sponge just a little bit. Let's see, like that. If I had used this sponge here, it would just been a big old blob. The chip should fall along the edge. So I'm trying to, again, it's a fantasy thing, obviously. It's a pretend thing. But I'm trying to give it some kind of basis in, well, what you would see. I don't want to say realism, but something that's not out of the realm of what you might actually see somewhere. And you can see how you can end up with a thing that's just maybe a wee bit too large. Obviously, the focus is on any kind of corners and edges first. Corners and edges first. Trying to keep a light touch with this thing. It's not always easy. I gotta tell you, there might be an occasion or two where you go, oh my goodness, and you have to maybe paint back over, or in the, like here, we'll just put more rust streaks there, or maybe some dirt. So again there, okay, let's see. Yeah, it's going to take some of that away now. Got to remember, I got my other sponge here. I'm going to hit some of these drums. Some of the jerry cans. But there's chipping just for chipping's sake, and then there's chipping with a purpose. Sort of like remember the grass tufts episode that we did? It was part of the Dark Sword video, and it was, well, how can you make those grass tufts be more than just that typical sort of afterthought that you see a lot, that we all kind of sometimes do. Now I'm gonna get a little bit more of that black brown out here. The other thing too is, I suppose if you do this all the time, if you're really painting a lot of vehicles, you're so used to doing the chipping thing. It's been a while since I've done this, or so I kind of have to relearn the touch here a bit, and that's what I'm trying to do. And I'm hoping, I don't know, in some ways, I kind of hope that if things don't work exactly the way I'd like them to, especially on the episodes here, then you feel like, yeah, okay, if something goes not quite as expected, it can be dealt with, or it's just not that big a deal. And sometimes the sponge just doesn't do it, and I gotta grab a brush and do that. Wherever there's any kind of panel lines or seams or whatever, or up here where maybe somebody might be walking around on the roof, that is why I'm thinking about here for sure, having a decent collection of chippiness. I'm going to actually back this out here one level, and I think I might make it, make it easier for me to keep it on screen, and hopefully easier for you to see. I'm even kind of squishing the sponge a little bit to change its shape. And sometimes it's not necessarily chipping, it's where the paint is sort of, the sun is almost doing its thing. It's not so much that it's been hit something or somebody's been walking on it. It's almost like it's a little bit pockmarked or whatever. Now, we do as much as we can with that. Then, okay, let's say we do something with a brush and maybe we do a little bit more of a construction here. I think I'm going to go actually with this is what I'm looking for. One of these. There's also these. Let's try it. Let's see what we get. Because remember, we still have the... it's a little bit more regular than I'd like it to be. Although, I mean, that's not too bad there. I'm gonna do something right. Actually, that's proven to be a little bit handy. Okay. Because remember, all this darker stuff here, that will, I don't want to say be covered, but there's going to be the dirt, the grime, the rust. Now you know I also didn't get super wedded to totally smooth blends on yellows. I just wanted it to be yellow and have just some kind of indication of shading. Yeah. I'm gonna get some of these. There's in between the windows, maybe. And every so often I'll grab a touch of the rust color here. Maybe areas where there's tools, that would be a bit more chipped up. Certainly I'd say by a door or fenders, most likely. Especially, again, these leading edges. I'm thinking, yeah, a couple there. Let's hit the other side here now. What else? Let's just do some stuff on this here. And before I get too carried away with all that, one last bit here. Let's see what we can do with chipping on this. If anything that's going to get chipped, it's going to be this. And there's little sort of pock marks there, bullet, whatever. I'm gonna go back to the sponges here. Okay. So that's, I mean, we got something going there. I might enhance that a bit more. Certainly going to hit the edges of this. Like that. Just really take away some of that paint. I mean, talk about a place where there'd be some heavy-duty wear and tear. I think that would certainly qualify as a place where you'd have it. Hatch, I mean, gee whiz, it's of all the places where you would certainly have an ample amount of weathering or chipping or whatever, that is one of them. So there's multiple tools you can use for this, really. When you think about it, there's just a lot of ways to go about it. I think I'm just going to, yeah, I want to have that whole edge. I mean, there just wouldn't be any kind of paint there. Let's really maybe ding this up even a little bit better here. I think so. That's I think that pleases me a little bit more. Yeah, it will be messy. Just kind of how it's going to be. So, a couple more touches here, if I may. I know we're taking up an awful lot of time with just this, but now let's see what we can do for some rust. And actually, you know what? Let's just hit this guy first. We have rust brown here. This is from Secret Weapon. We have our other pigments here. So it is kind of nice to have multiple rust colors, some darker, some lighter. So I think I might just separate things like the dust and dirt, maybe that into a separate little segment here. So we're just making ourselves another one of these kind of washes. Kind of bring a little more of this over there. And remember, a little is a lot. I'm going to add some of the regular brown to that too. Gotta have my sponges at the ready. And I'm going to start over here first. See what kind of a flow that I'm getting. I like the idea of a little more brown in there. You can see I'm kind of starting with the I-beam where that is intersecting with the rest of the metal. It's just an area where water would sort of congregate. Now, look at what's happening here. Oh, look at that. And I'm going to start out kind of subtle with this. So see how that it's in a way it becomes like an oil wash. Because we've got the pigment fixer, it turned it into a liquid. See how we can fade that a bit. Yeah, that, oh my goodness. Wow. Yeah, this is, see, if I was to do that with acrylic paint, I think you've seen me do it, there would still be kind of a bit of an edge to it. This is much more like, it is so much like doing an oil wash. So I'm thinking successful experiment. I just wasn't sure. There is, when you do the, it's something like this. Now, when you use the weathering powders as more of a powder, you do get a really super soft look. But a couple of other things that happen, it's not permanent. You have to seal it in some way. And when you seal those things, even with a spray, you lose so much of what you did. Oh, look at that. Oh, wow, that's, I'm really happy with this. So I have to admit, wasn't quite sure what to expect. Now here, look at what I'm doing. I'm just kind of getting some of this on the surface to start with, and then I'm going to try and go with some darker rust up here. And then pull it down like so. Also trying to gear it from where, okay, that piece of metal right there, it should yield some more rust right there. Now, if that's too heavy, so we do this, take that sponge and look at that. So if I do this quick enough, and it's got to be quick, if I do that quick enough, then there is some removal that can be done. Let's go back to a somewhat heavier rust here. Now remember, it's going to dry lighter, so this is why I'm taking some of that darker brown and mixing it in here. Now if I can't find a light enough version of powders to give me that lightest, almost orange rust color, well, then I'll just, maybe I have to put that in with paint, but it would be a final layer. This is a really nice intro layer. Sorry if that's out of focus. Let's do this real quick here. Let me just check my focus. Sorry if I've gotten that out of focus for you. Come on, there. So once again, we're going to start by getting a little moisture on the surface. Okay, I don't know if that's off the palette or not. I apologize if it is. Kind of down here in the corner, everything is really dark, so it's just maybe a touch hard to see. Okay. Yeah, I'm able to get some nice soft streaks out of this, and that's the thing that I'm truly looking for here. Okay, more of my rust color. And I might even, I'm thinking of just getting maybe even a smaller brush for some more rust type things. I'm also going to do something like this, where now the rust is getting expanded out by the liquid that's there. Now I'm just going to set this down. I know I got the other side to do, but there's that moisture that's just got to dry. And let's do some rust on this. And so see right there. Oh, look at that. That was kind of neat. That just what happened with my hand there. Oh, I'm going to move this maybe down here so that you don't have to look at the back of my hand quite as often. And this is the darker brown. And I'm just kind of doing this as dots here. This is what I would do with the oil stuff. It's a little bit tough to do this with acrylic because, well, it's just going to dry on you. I've noticed that the MIG ammo pigment fixer maybe stays workable slightly longer than the secret weapon version. Either one, though, will let you do stuff like this. So that's pretty fun. And this is starting to dry a little bit. So we can always go back in here and double down on some of the streaks if we feel the need to. Oh, look at it, nice and soft. Yeah, that's pretty fun, and it's staying there. That's the other thing. That's the other really critical element to this is that it's not moving anywhere. Okay, so we've done some of the. Let's get to this guy here, and I'm going to zoom in on it here. So let us do some stuff here with the metal panels. And I don't want these to be completely rusted over. Okay. Go back to this. So again, this is a more of a brownish type color here. I certainly wanted to get into this. So you can see I grabbed a little bit more of the liquid pigment fixer so that would flow a little bit more. Again, I don't want the entire thing to be nothing but rust. Okay, we've got that pretty well. And look at what we're doing here. Moving some of this around, taking some of it away. Now, I noticed that no matter which pigment fixer that you use, whether it's going to be the secret weapon, the MIG ammo, whatever, it is harder to remove the paint. Well, the pigment. That I'll tell you right now. It can be much tougher to just wipe that away with your sponge or whatever. Something just to keep in mind. To me, no, in any situation, the ideal thing is to combine techniques, combine materials. That as much as I guess we would all like to have that one material that works 100% for everything, you don't need anything else but this one thing. That's, sorry to say, but that is not super reality based right there. You're most likely going to have to combine materials to get results. In all likelihood, that will be the case. So again, trying to think of, okay, why would there be streaks there? You can see there we've got some, look at this, that there should be something going on here. And not every rust streak has to be this colossal entity, which is very, very dark and shows up a lot. So pardon me while I kind of end up out on the end of the palette here. Okay. Do some of these now. So what I'm going to do, actually, I'm just going to have to end this segment here. We're just going to have to break it into one more. Okay, what I'm going to do is do the rest on the other side, and then maybe we'll do some up here, but then we also want to do our dust and another thing. So let me just hit the other side of this, because it's going to be very much like what's happening here. We'll get that equalized out, and then we will try and give you one more segment here to finish this baby off. Okay, and we'll do that next. So I think you can see how we've applied some of that stuff just like we did on this here. We've gone in, and in some cases we just apply a little bit of our liquid here first, like so. So we got a little bit of an edge around there, and then we can just kind of drag this down. And so it leaves a little bit of a stain behind. That's definitely more of an oil type of a thing, I would say, than specifically just the weathering powder. Well, like it'd be tough to do this with acrylics here to get that much. And it also has a little bit of, see how it has a little, it's leaving behind some residue there. That's actually kind of nice that it's doing that. I can say that you have a finite amount of time to work with this stuff before it starts to coagulate. So that's the other thing I'm noticing here. Again, this is a total experiment. This is not something that I've done a bazillion times before. So I am, in effect, I'm learning right along with you guys here, just figuring out what this is going to do. But now what I want to try is maybe some dust effects here. So what that's going to require now, I think, is a here. Look at all the powder that's deposited in there. Oh my gosh! All right, I'm gonna try some of this yellow earth here. This is from Secret Weapon, and if you don't mind, I'm going to take this away here. And now I've got a new palette sheet. We'll get some of this out here. We've got this ancient earth here. I'm gonna put that over here. Now this stuff is lighter, so I gotta be aware of that. Gotta be, get some of this out here and see what happens. I think I need a little bit more. So I'm gonna throw a little bit more out here. I think I need this to be extra liquid here. But I gotta work fast with this. Now it's got some of the reddishness in there too. So yeah, let's get some of the tan. I'm trying to really get this going quick, because that's the thing that I'm seeing. You have to do this quickly. So maybe if you're doing it, maybe a little less at one time, because you can sort of work at your own pace. For me, can't really work at my own pace. I have to work at the pace of the video. But look at that! Look at that! That's doing some good work there. Again, focusing up here, getting some of this dirt effect best as I can. Down into the treads of these tires here. Onto the hubcap. On this side now. And then it'll give these barrels another, something besides just the rust color. Same here, look at this. Something besides just that rust color. Same here. Again, gotta work quick. Some dust here instead of only rust. We will hit this over here. And they're going to take me probably a couple of hours of additional work besides what you're seeing me do here. There's things that I cannot tackle in this. Again, I thought about making this a multi-part episode, and well, there wasn't time, unfortunately. Oh, look at that. Look at that. See it? Look, you can still see that bluishness there, but now what do we have? We have some more besides that. We've got this almost kind of a dirt type of a color working its way in here. So, and yes, that can also go here onto the bus itself. Not only just rust. Gotta remember though, this will dry later. Can put some here too. We also want to make sure that we get some here in the hubcap on that tire. I'm thinking some over here too. Yeah, let's just do a little bit here. Again, this is more of a dust and grime than it is about rust. Remember I said we can put some other things out besides just rust. And if I don't like that, like if I feel that's too much, what do? I just take some paint over it. This is because this is liquid fixer. The stuff is fixed in place. Oops, sorry. That's the other the reason why I can only do so much with this, because due to the size of this and just because of the way I have to hold it, it's really, really tough. It is extremely tough to have this oriented where you guys can see it easily. So now it takes away some of the rustiness there. Starts to put in some dust. Because if you look back through some of the other videos that I've done where I just use the secret weapon, the acrylic paints, that obviously works just fine too. It's not like I won't be using those again. Get this tire over here. Is it on screen? I think now it's on screen, but I'm just going to tilt it over so you can see what's happening here. So again, grab some of my powder here, turn that into a liquid, and you can see how that fills that in, gets down into that crevice. Let's get a little bit of, basically looking to get some dust here, not always rust. Same up here. I think I'm going to get some of that in here too. There we go. And then this is pretty much just liquid here. A little bit of what's in the brush. Okay. Get some of that here. Sometimes it's fun to have that sort of dark, where the metal is dark and then the dust that shows through is actually lighter. Let's see about here. Get some little touch of dust in there. I'm gonna have this on an angle again. A little bit of dust there. Have it go down again the side of this. We've got a couple of wheels here we want to do. Let that get down into the crevices. Now, because I got this chunk of resin here on either side, it limits what I can do with the tires, obviously. It really does. Okay. All right, that is good there. Maybe let's get some dust in here. That's sort of where it would collect. At least I think that's where it would. There we are. So that seems to be okay there. And again, while it's still wet, maybe I go back in here and let some of that get taken away. Using my fingers sometimes to just push it around. Okay. On the back of this here, let's see what I can do. That backpack. And this is less about shading, it's more about quite literally just dirt. And I can already see that that stuff's starting to coagulate over there. Which that's the thing that's telling me you have a finite work time with this before it just starts to turn into this weird gummy stuff. The rubbing alcohol never does that. I can tell you that for sure. That's no doubt there. But we're not using rubbing alcohol. All right, so yeah, it's definitely starting to dry a little bit lighter there. So before I get too crazy with that, I'm just gonna let that dry. And like I said, I'll have as many photos as I can for you, and in subsequent videos, I'll see if I can maybe perfect this some more. Heck, I might even do a little bit of. I might actually do like a separate video where I'm just sort of doing some of the finer things on this, kind of like a follow-up sort of thing. But in any case, I do want to thank everybody for supporting Patreon page. It's definitely been weird. It's been crazy. I hope that you're able to enjoy the hobby, because that's really important now. Oh, this goes here. Okay. so you can get a little look at how that is. So thanks again, everybody. I don't want to extend this out any farther than it has to be, but I appreciate you watching the big old giant bus episode here. So thanks again, everybody, and I will catch you on the next weathering workshop, or maybe we'll do some more innovation, some more testing.